Hi, everybody. Welcome to Yoga for a Stiff and Sore Back. My name is Justin. This is Cody. I'm really glad that you're here. For this practice, I recommend maybe having a yoga block or two, maybe if you have two. If you do not have a yoga block, that's okay. You will not need it. But if you do have one, it may come in handy for one of the poses we're going to be doing. Of course, for these grounded yin type practices, I like to have pillows. You can also use a yoga bolster if you have one at home, and maybe a blanket or two. Again, props though are absolutely optional, not necessary. We're going to begin today's practice lying down on our bellies. So face the front of your space, come down onto your belly, and just relax down onto your mat. So just for a moment, allow your whole body to connect to the earth. Now, if you'd like to goal post your arms, cactus your arms, however you want to call, whatever you want to call that, you can do that. You can have your arms lying lengthwise down along your body. Just be present. So if you have a sore back, maybe you work all day and you're standing, and you need some relief in your low back, mid back, upper back, into the cervical spine, this practice will help you to release all of that out. And revisit this practice anytime that you need to. Just be heavy, be still. Close your eyes if it feels safe, or keep them open. Slow, soft breath, nothing forced, easeful. We're going to take 5 slow rounds of breath here. 5. Just very slowly in and out through your nose or your mouth, whatever feels more comfortable. As we reach the end of the 5th round, we're going to move into our very first pose of Sphinx Pose. So allow your upper body to lift and bring the elbows in towards your outer rib cage. The closer your elbows are to your body, the more intense the back bend is going to be. So if you do have a very sore back and this feels very uncomfortable for you in any way, a variation of this pose is Crocodile Pose, where you allow your chest to lower down and just take your forehead onto your hands, which you can place one hand on top of the other. This is still a back bend. So you have that option of Crocodile Pose. We're going to kind of soften into our first pose, Sphinx Pose. This is one of the most healthy poses you could do for your low back. We're going to work our way into our low, mid, and upper back in today's practice, as well as the hips, because the hips connect your back to your legs, obviously, but they are a gateway to opening any of the stuck energy that is trapped in your low back. And we apply all the pressure onto our low backs throughout the day. we need to also not only release our low back, but also release the hips. These yin poses are functional in nature. They are not aesthetic. So we're not looking to look a certain way. Yoga is never about what it looks like. It's always about what it feels like. And in these poses, you're looking for a mild to moderate stretch. So if you feel anything that comes into a feeling of straining, pinching, sharp or shooting type of sensations or numbness, that's when it's time to take a modification of the pose. As I mentioned, the modification here could be lowering yourself down onto the mat and crossing your forearms or your hands on top of each other and lying in crocodile pose. Now, if this pose here is, you're like, oh, I could go a little deeper, we've got the option to lift the legs up and the feet up. You can flex your feet and even move your knees out just a little wider, coming into an extended Sphinx. Remembering that your low back and spine are connected to your head and neck. So if you have a block or something else around and you'd like to rest your chin on a block, or maybe a book, or if you have DVD box sets or something else sturdy, you can lift your chin up and then lower it down on top of that. Some students also place their hands into interlaced, like making a fist. And you can place those fists or the interlaced right under your chin. So just be as comfortable as you can with the sensation level that you're in. You do not have to keep your legs lifted. You can lower them at any point. Please do what feels good for you. There's no way for me to know what you're feeling. Only you know what you're feeling. So when you need to make an adjustment, make one. There's no rules about when you can make adjustments. If you want to go even deeper into this, you can lower your legs down and take your arms out to the sides. So your hands will be placed at the top corners of your mat or even off to the sides. And you can lift your way up into a seal pose. Your elbows will lift up off the floor and the mat. This is a very deep back bend. Again, if it's very sore or stiff in your low back, you may not be able to go this deep. You may want to return to the extended Sphinx version, the regular Sphinx, or even down into the crocodile. All those are there for you. We're going to be here for about 1 more minute. If you're staying in seal with me for this final minute, we're going to just take about maybe 7 or 8 rounds of breath here. Let your body talk to you. Let it tell you exactly where you need to go, what modifications you need to make, and what position feels the best for you. As we reach the end of those rounds of breath, if you are up in this seal pose, lower your elbows back down. If you're in the extended Sphinx version, lower your feet and legs down. We're all going to go into a crocodile. If you're already there, we're going to meet you there. As you go there, though, become aware of what's happening in your low back as you start to come down. And release all the tension out of the low back and possibly even into the mid back. Pausing, feeling, recognizing. And then we're going to slowly begin to lift up the legs. If your arms are underneath your face or your chin, send them lengthwise and lift up your legs. Take some slow, gentle windshield wipers with your legs, just back and forth. And then let's make our way up into a table pose. So lift up onto your hands and knees and stack your hands underneath your shoulders and stack your knees under your hips. Moving into our next pose of thread the needle, we're going to ground into the left hand and reach the right arm up to the sky. Take a nice big breath in. And then go ahead and thread the right arm underneath your left and allow your right shoulder to release down onto the mat. Your left hand can stay right here underneath your left elbow. You could even reach your left arm forward, creating a little shoulder opening for yourself here. If you don't like keeping your toes tucked, flatten the tops of your feet onto the mat. This provides a twist and release for the spine, and it works all the way up into the cervical spine, which is the part of your spine that connects the base of your skull to the mid and upper back. It also is a great stretch for your shoulders. If you're feeling pressure like I am right now in your right shoulder, you do have the ability to slide your hips back slightly, coming into more of a twisted child's pose variation, or twisted tadpole, we sometimes call this in Yin. Yin Yoga is the opposite of Yang Yoga, which is the more of the Vinyasa Yoga, where you're using muscles to build strength and connect breath and movement. We are moving into stillness in Yin Yoga, but you're still working without even realizing that your body is working right now, right here for you. Soften as much as you can. You have the option also to take this left hand and reach it into your right back pocket, creating a slight opening in the left shoulder in a different way than you just did if your left arm was reaching forward. Again, noticing your level of sensation. You are not looking to come into deep stretching, which creates sometimes a feeling of straining or sharpness. You're coming in to soften, light, mild stretch. With just about 7 or 8 more breaths on this side. If you're tensing into your hands or arms, release and let go of that grip. Wherever your left hand is, go ahead and return it underneath your left elbow and push into your left hand so that you can release your right arm out from underneath you. We'll take a few circles with your right arm, forwards or backwards, just a few, maybe 2 or 3. You can even shift your hips back too. And then switch directions, just opening and releasing some right shoulder tension and even into the upper back as well. Plant both hands down into the mat, ground into your right hand this time, and lift the left arm up. As you thread the needle on this side, send your left arm underneath your right and ease your way onto your left shoulder and left ear and cheek. The same options are here. Your right hand can be underneath your right elbow and shoulder. You can take your right hand and place it into your left back pocket. You could reach your right hand forward. For me, putting the right arm behind me on this side feels better for my right shoulder. Everybody is different, so just go where it feels best for you to go. Remember, you have the opportunity and option to shift your hips back, maybe take your left arm back with you a little bit closer to your knees, and come into more of a twisted tadpole version. If you need to widen your knees a bit, you can also do that. Just sit back, relax. Try and allow the softening to happen rather than forcing anything. These yin poses target the connective tissue that runs throughout your entire body, the fascia. It's about 3 layers of connective tissue down from your skin. And the fascia is responsible for holding and protecting all of your inner organs, muscles, joints. Everything within you is surrounded by this thick fibrous band of fascia. And when you come into these yin poses, you start to block some of the fluid from flowing through your connective tissue in a healthy way. And when you release the pose, you will feel sensation creeping back into your body. It usually feels like a nice release. And that is very important because what it does is it allows all of the fibers, the collagen fibers in your connective tissue to reorganize. And when that happens, fresh fluid begins to flow through those and it creates healing. So not only are you coming into a mental practice here, but a physical practice that is so healing for your entire body. Perhaps just as healing as doing a power vinyasa practice where you're focusing on muscles. And we're going to take about 5 or 6 more rounds of breath on this side. As you reach your final round of breath, bring your right hand back underneath your right elbow and shoulder so you can push into it and lift your way back up. We'll take some shoulder circles, arm circles on this side. Now notice if you feel that sensation. Maybe you feel a temperature change in your left arm or even into your back. Switch directions with your left arm as you circle it. And then bring both hands down to the mat, coming back into a table pose. Let's take just a few rounds of cat-cows to reinvigorate the spine before our next pose. Lift your chin and drop your belly, come into a cow pose. And then round your back, and the chin will pull in towards your chest for cat pose. Let's take a few more rounds because it's important to have yang movement, which is the opposite of yin, while we are in a yin practice. Just like in a yang practice, a power practice, you wind up doing some yin towards the end. It's important because they both complement each other. After your next cat pose, then move your way back into table. And walk your hands forward slightly. Begin to slide your right knee behind your right wrist and lengthen your left leg out as we move into a swan pose. We're going to come into a little bit of hips here before we work a little more into the back. So the goal of swan pose is not so that your right foot will meet your left wrist. The right leg is to be as comfortable as possible, and the left leg is also to be as comfortable as possible. You have a couple of options here. You can even take a blanket, place a blanket under your left knee if you have straining. You can have a block ready because we are going to fold forward. Maybe you want to land on a block, or take one of your pillows or a yoga bolster, or even another blanket to land on. First, allow your body to be solid in its foundation, so that way you're able to open up into your left hip flexor, the front of your left hip there and your left thigh. That's your hip flexor. Our hip flexors get very tight when it comes to stress, and it comes to doing a lot of work on when we're standing up. So when you have sore back, a lot of times it's related to the hip flexors as well. Start to walk forward and allow your whole upper body to come down onto the mat, the block, maybe the bolster, and release all the way down. We're going to pause here again for maybe about 3 to 4 minutes. Each of these poses is held for about 3 to 5 minutes. That gives your connective tissue time to get that compression in it before the release of the pose happens. So you'll really be feeling a lot of sensation in your right hip here, possibly into your left thigh still, and that left hip flexor. So if you start to feel like it is too much for you, you can even roll over onto your right hip and lay forward in more of a sloppy swan version. That's what that's called. Or you can even come onto your back if this is a little too much for you. If you are, those of you who are going to stay on your belly, go ahead and stay right there. If you do need to come onto your back because your knees cannot handle it, lay down on your back and place your right foot over your left thigh and lay down on the mat. You can even do this along the wall. If you want to lift up your left leg and go put your glutes against the baseboard of the wall and let your left leg go up, you can do this against the wall. So you have so many choices here. I'm going to return to the belly version of this, the version that I showed you at the beginning, but if you are needing to stay on your back, please do. Okay. This is a no judgment zone, so it doesn't matter what you're doing something. Just again, the only thing we ask is you maintain some breath and you watch for any sharp or shooting pain. That's where we're not going, is any kind of pain. Try and soften. Soften through your left leg. Soften through your right leg. Soften through your hips and your low back. And just take slow, soft breath. In and out. Again, it's mild, moderate stretching. Not deep. We're not going into the muscles to stretch. We are only going into that connective tissue, which is not in the muscle. It's around the muscle and protects the muscles, the organs, the bones, the joints. Yin Yoga, this practice of yoga for sore and stiff back, is so beneficial for your joints. Helps increase mobility, flexibility, and opens up your mind into a state of meditation where all you're doing is noticing what's going on around you. It's okay to fidget around if you need to make adjustments. We will be here for about 1 more minute, a little less than that. Let's begin to make our way out. We're going to go slowly as we move out of this pose because, as I have just been talking about, when we move into this connective tissue, it can be fragile, especially if you have not done a practice like this before or you have not done one in a while. Walk your hands slowly back towards your right leg and very slowly roll onto your right hip. We're going to flush some of this energy through, so you're going to wind up sideways on your mat as you place your hands next to you and start to windshield wiper your legs. As you do that, you will notice all of that sensation in the right hip and in the front of the left thigh start to dissipate as all that energy flushes. All that fresh fluid is now flowing into all of the area you just worked. So we're just shifting the energy yet again, moving right to left, left to right. Take a few more swipes of the windshield wipers, and then we will make our way onto the other side for Swan. So move back into a table pose to set up. Bring your arms out just a little bit farther up than you normally would in a standard table like this. Walk forward slightly so you have the room to slide the left knee behind the left wrist, maybe to the left of it a little bit too. And bring your left leg as parallel to the top of the mat as you can. It does not have to be straight. Mine never can be straight on either side. My hips aren't constructed like that. Yours may not be either. Maybe they are. Extend the right leg long and prep yourself for comfort in your right knee by placing that blanket under there if you need it. You also have the opportunity to place a block or even a blanket under your left hip if you need a little assistance there. Give yourself a moment in this upright position. It's like you're in an upward facing dog in your chest, shoulders back, chest forward. Feel the right hip flexor activate, and then start to walk into your sleeping version of this as your left hip will then activate even more, coming down into this version. And don't forget, you have that sloppy swan version available if you want to roll over to the left hip if this is too much straining on your left knee, on your low back. Take the opportunity to get comfortable, fidget around. I like to place a block sometimes right underneath my rib cage. It helps alleviate some pressure in the cervical spine if you do that, but it's not mandatory, it's optional. As is everything in yoga, optional. There is no right or wrong way to do any of these poses. The only thing that we're focusing on in this practice is moving into the shape that fits your body and breathing. Slow, light breaths in and out. Not only does Yin Yoga give you a physical benefit, but it gives you the mental benefit. Quieting the mind, focusing on those slow breaths in and out will start to get you out of all of that headspace that doesn't serve you sometimes, like the what ifs and the worrying, the fear, the to-do list, or the things you've been procrastinating to do. All of those things come into a different perspective as you're working through these poses in your body. If you have a power practice, or you are working physically at your job, or you do other physical exercising, Yin Yoga is the perfect complement because it is the exact opposite of everything else we do that is related to muscle work. We need our joints and our connective tissue to be healthy just as we need our muscles to be healthy. If you practice Yin Yoga regularly, you will notice a change in your power practice or in any other exercise you do because your joints start to feel different. And here in this practice, we are working into the back. But again, this pose really the hips are affected here more than your back will be. But as I mentioned at the beginning, hips are connected. Everything's connected, but your hips are a big part of low back straining, mid to upper back straining, and even sore legs. We hold the poses, as I mentioned before, for 3 minutes or so, sometimes a little longer, to allow the connective tissue to do its work. But studies and research do show that it takes only about 30 to 45 seconds to activate any stretching or compression in your fascia, connective tissue. So even if you're in this pose for 45 seconds and you have to get out of it for some reason, you have still made a difference. You can always come out of these poses and lay down on your belly or your back or your side and join us in the next one. Please do what feels good for you and be free. And we've got about 1 more minute left on this side. This is your opportunity to soften in a little more, relaxing into the shoulders, the neck. Let your head really be heavy. Let your hips and glutes and thighs be heavy. And just be. Let's make our way, our exit out of Swan by placing the hands underneath the shoulders, rolling onto the left hip. And instead of coming up to a seat this time, swing your right leg around towards the front of your mat and lay down on your back. Bring a block with you or a blanket if you have it and lay down onto your back. Keep your soles of your feet on the mat and windshield wiper your legs from the left to the right, just like you did when you were sitting down after the right side of Swan. Do those same type of motions, and we're going to amplify this just a little bit by doing some bicycle motions with the legs just to increase all of the fluid to flow. So start to make some motions that look like you're pedaling in your bicycle. You can even bring your hands underneath your low back and pedal up to the ceiling. Or if you feel more comfortable with the windshield wipers, continue those. Should feel really good. And then we're going to pause before our last pose in a Supta Baddha Konasana, or a butterfly. Bring your feet together and bring your knees out towards the outer edges of your mat. Pausing here for just a moment in time, a few breaths. Feel your belly rising and falling. Feel the power you have within you right here. We're going to make our way into our next pose, which will be a supported or standard bridge pose. So if you're going to take the supported version, which I'm going to take today, take a block or any other object you have, lift up your hips and place the block on its lowest level. So it would look this level right here. If you're looking at me, this is the lowest level. So we're not going to use this very high level. We're going to use the low level, not even the medium level, low level. So place the block underneath your low back. If you do not have a block, that's okay. Just place your low back down onto the mat and keep the soles of your feet about hip width distance apart. We're going to rest in this supported bridge or traditional bridge if you do not have a block for a few rounds of breath before we take a few different variations of this pose to finish off our practice before our final rest. Your hips probably feel more open now from the swan poses. Your upper back should also feel a little more open from thread the needle, and also into the low back from Sphinx and seal, whatever variations or crocodile that you took earlier as well. The option is to stay here or extend your right leg long. And if you are on the block, that's okay. Extend your right leg long. If you have no block, that's okay too. Just extend it long. That's option number one. You can stay here. Option number two is to let this left knee start to fall towards the left side of your mat. Now, if you don't feel comfortable letting your knee hover and having the knife edge of your left foot on the mat, keep your left knee up, or even place something under your left knee. Like you can roll a blanket like that, or even another block, and just let your knee rest on it. This is going to activate your whole lower back, especially on the left side if your left knee is going out. But you will also notice some changes in the sensations in the front of your legs, maybe your inner leg lines, and into your hips again, but a different sensation that than you may have felt in previous poses. Maybe it's the same sensation. So you have all those choices. Left knee can go to the left knee can be up with your left foot down on the mat, block or no block, or in a traditional bridge by keeping both feet on the mat. Shoulders are relaxed. Unclench your jaw. Soften your eyes. Neck is released. Your feet are not clenching. You're not clenching in your hands. Maybe open your mouth to breathe so your jaw drops. We hold so much tension and stress in our face that these poses can sometimes kind of push that stress level in our faces up a notch because you feel like you're trying to win some kind of imaginary race in a yoga pose, and that's very normal. So just soften. We're here for just a few more rounds of breath and we're going to make some movement. Now, if your left knee is out to the left side like mine is, or it's on a prop, slowly lift your left knee back up to the center and then remove the prop if it's there, and then bring your right foot back to the mat. You're back in bridge pose. Let's switch sides. And then this time, let's extend the left leg long and keep the right foot on the mat. Notice a difference in the sides, right versus left. So for me, it feels like I'm going way deeper into this side than the other, primarily because my left hip has had an injury. So if you've had an injury in your left hip, that may be happening too, but it may be happening even if you didn't have an injury. So work with what you have. Take your right knee and allow it to fall to the right, again, if it's okay for you. Placing a prop underneath the right knee is cool if it's there, if you need it. Maybe your right leg does not go down as far towards the earth as your left knee did and leg. Remember the options to stay in a traditional bridge, to have no block underneath you, or no blanket, or no hands. You can even place your hands there if you like. The option is there to have none of that. You are still coming in to a nice, juicy back bend. Working into all of this pelvic region will alleviate a lot of the straining in the back. Work with what you have and not forcing. We're going to be here for a few more rounds of breath. And let's begin to move this right knee back to an upright position. If you have props, you can move them out of the way. And bring the sole of your left foot to meet your right as you pause in bridge pose one final time. If you have a prop underneath your low back, lift up your hips and release the prop out and lower your hips down to the mat. Let's take some final windshield wiper motions as we have now worked the entire back body, the shoulders, and the hips, all connected. Place both feet back on the mat if they're not, and then cross your right leg over your left. Send your arms out like wings or a T, looking like you're in a T position. And your legs that are crossed will now fall to the left side of you, or you can uncross them if this doesn't feel good. As you come into a final spinal twist, or a twisted roots version of spinal twist. If this doesn't feel okay, stack your knees one on top of the other. Or you can straighten your right leg out towards the left and pull, take your left hand and pull just a bit on your right thigh. Just a bit. The back of your right thigh. Giving your spine that nice juicy twist, alleviating more pressure in your back. Return your feet back to the mat in a neutral position. Cross your left leg over your right. Arms can go out like wings. We'll go to the right side. This time though, again, notice what's happening. Try to keep both shoulder blades connected to the earth if you can. If you can. Option to straighten your left leg. Option to stack your knees. Option to just lay flat down on the mat. We're all going to be doing that here in just another moment. Let's make our way there to our final pose of Savasana. So come back slow, extend your legs long, Allow your entire body to rest, to relax, to be restorative in nature in your final pose, your healing Savasana. Take this moment to congratulate yourself. Feel how open your whole body feels. Maybe some relief from the sore stiffness. You may need to repeat the practice tomorrow, in a week. Maybe it's part of your regular routine. Please come back and visit it at any time. Slide the soles of your feet slowly to the earth. Select the right or left side. Take your arms out like wings and roll to the right or left side so that your ear, whichever side you're going to, lands on your bicep of that arm. Pausing in this almost fetal position to allow yourself gratitude and grace for everything that you have done for your body as it thanks you. Lift your way up into a comfortable seat. Any seat that feels good for you. Draw your hands into your heart center and bow your chin into your fingertips as you offer everything up from the practice right here in Anjali Mudra, the mudra of offering. Thumb knuckles up to your third eye center. As a community, we bow forward together. Namaste. Wishing you all a wonderful day ahead, or evening ahead, or morning ahead, whenever you've chosen to do this. Lots of health, and wishing you and thanking you with lots of gratitude for being here. Please leave a comment below if this practice has helped you. Let me know if there's any other practices you'd like to see on this channel. And do me a favor, before you exit this, go hit that like button. It really helps spread this beautiful practice of yoga out into the world. I'll see you all next time right here on Strength, Yoga, and Freedom, the YouTube channel.